I would like to extend a warm welcome to all members of the committee and other members and officers in attendance at today's meeting. I am Councillor Alan O'Sullivan, Chairman of the committee. Welcome to members of the public and press who may be viewing the meeting live on YouTube. The audio broadcast will remain available for a minimum of 12 months. I would remind those in attendance to use your microphone when speaking and remember to switch it off once you have finished speaking. Please switch any mobile devices to a silent setting for the duration of the meeting. For the benefit of those listening to the meeting online, I will now call the names of each committee member and ask them to introduce themselves. As I previously mentioned, I am Councillor Alan O'Sullivan, Chairman of the committee. Councillor Elvey?
Present.
Councillor Brand?
Present, Chair.
Councillor Davis?
Present, Chairman.
Councillor Levitt?
Present, Chairman.
Again, Councillor Wood?
Present. Thank you.
Thank you. I've got two apologies, Councillor Lane and Councillor Sevier. So, item 1 on the agenda is, do members agree the minutes of the meeting held on the 5th of May and the 2nd of July this year as a correct record?
Agreed.
Thank you. Do members have any declaration of interest in respect of the business of today's meeting? No, thank you. There are no public participants, so we'll move on to item 4, and which is Treasury Management Monitoring, and welcome, Gemma.
Thank you, Chairman. Good morning, everyone. So this mid-year report sets out the performance of the Treasury management function for the first half of the financial year. All Treasury activity has complied with the Council's Treasury management strategy and all relevant statute guidance and accounting standards. The Treasury management position at the 30th of September 2021 and the change during the year is shown in Table 2 on page 6. The reduction in net borrowing of £27.9 million reflects an increase in investment balances of £27.8 million, as well as a repayment of maturity of borrowing of £0.1 million in line with the Council's policy on internal borrowing. There's been no new borrowing undertaken during the period. Table 4 on page 9 of your report shows investment activity for the Council at the 30th of September in comparison to the activity at the 31st of March. The increase in total investments since the 31st of March reflects the fact that the balance at the 31st of March each year is typically the lowest of the year. Returns have been at or around 0.01% for liquid investment options and haven't been significantly higher for other short-term options. Investment income has therefore largely come from investments arranged at fixed rates of interest prior to the pandemic and through the Council's investments in pooled funds. That was all I was planning to say, but I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you.
I've just personally got a couple of things highlighted. Just have a look. I'm not sure whether it's going to be you or Alan, is 6.4 is the Council is not planning to purchase any investment assets primarily for yield for within the next 3 years. Is that true?
Yes, Chairman, that is. I think let's think about the Crow Lane project, for example. So that is an asset that is going to bring a yield to the Council, but it's not the primary purpose of that investment. The primary purpose is to support the New Forest economy and to sustain and bring new employment into the New Forest. So yes, there is the yield element, but it's not the primary purpose, which is why that statement is true, yes.
Okay. Also, I've probably asked this before, our borrowing position where the Public Works Loan Board is 3.3%. Percentages are really low, so can we not renegotiate that?
Unfortunately, they were fixed term loans essentially over a fairly lengthy period. So the early redemption charges wouldn't make it worth our while, unfortunately, in terms of refactoring. I mean, I'll certainly have the conversation with our colleagues at Arling Close just to double check those calculations where we are now. But the last time we checked, it was still worthwhile leaving them where they were.
Okay, and the other one I've got is on 9.3. You've got the non-treasury investments that we have, and at the end of the list, you've got total investment properties, and then you've got I presume that's the average percentage, 4.73, but none of those are below that. So how does that become the average?
I'm fairly comfortable that is going to be the right calculation. It's probably a case of timing. So the percentages in the end column are the annual rate of return. I suspect what that is representing is the average to date. But again, I can double check the calculation, Chairman, and send a note round.
Is it on the same lines?
Me? Okay. Yes, I have a question on table 9.3. Yesterday in a meeting, we were informed, which I didn't know about, that we own property down at Keyhaven, which is income producing. I'm just wondering why that is not shown on this list.
Yeah, again, I can come in on that one, Chairman. So because it's used as an amenity, so it's supporting sort of facilities, if you like, within the New Forest. It's not purely there and doesn't meet the categorisation as an investment property, hence why it's not in the list.
Yeah, under 9.1, it says the definition of investments is further broadened to include all such assets held partially for financial return.
Again, we check in terms of the criteria to meet an investment property, and it doesn't meet the criteria for an investment property.
Okay, all right, I've raised it. Can I just ask one more question, if I may? And that is on 10.3, when you talk about a £4 million principal was due to be returned to the council on maturity of a secured bond. Can you update us on that?
Absolutely. So the bank made an error, and they didn't return the £4 million on the day that it was due, but they returned it the next day.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So it is returned now?
Yes, we do have it now, yes.
Okay, thank you.
And to see also Arlington's close outlook, so that doesn't sort of give an increase till mid next year of interest rates, but it looks likely that it might be next month.
Possibly. Yeah. That's Arling Close's view at the point at which the report was written. They haven't actually changed their point of view since then. I
just wonder how out of date that was and whether that's...
Yeah, that was at the point of when the report was written, and they haven't changed their mind at the moment. Who knows? Everyone's got an opinion.
Yeah, everybody's on a guess. But,
yeah.
Okay. Councillor.
I think Jack was ahead of me. You sure? Thank you, Chair. Just a couple of questions. As an ignorant backbencher, can I just ask about Arling Close? Can you just educate me and possibly others? How do Arling Close deal with any other district councils in Hampshire or in other areas of the country? I just want to be reassured about that.
Yes, they do. For example, they definitely work with Winchester City Council, who I also work with as well. And the county, of course, but in terms of district councils, yeah.
Just how long have they been involved with us?
Definitely the whole time that Hampshire's been involved, so that's since 2014.
Okay, so five.
Yeah.
Okay, Okay, thank you. And then just getting to page 17, I think it is.
Can you put your microphone on, please?
Sorry, I'm trying to be diligent. 12.3, paragraph 12.3, the last sentence is very concerning, but I know it's not, hopefully it's not anything to do with us. And it just, are we confident it definitely doesn't apply to the NFDC? That's the basis of my question.
Yeah, again, I can give assurance that we are not overly exposing ourselves to excessive risk like some other authorities may appear to be.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Councillor Davis? Did you have? No. Okay. Councillor Brand?
Thank you. In table 5 on page 11, it talks about weighted average maturity days. Could you explain what that means and why other local authorities are much lower than us?
So the weighted average maturity days is basically the average duration of each the investment over the whole portfolio. So a lower weighted average maturity means that it's more affected by interest rates. So if we're going into a raising rates environment, then we're more likely to be able to raise the overall interest rate received on the investments in the portfolio. So that's positive. Other authorities, as at the end of June, had a lower one, lower weighted average maturity, and that could be due to the sorts of investments that they had, the investment profile, sorry, my mind's just gone absolutely blank. I can't go into the exact reasons why the differences. There are differences, but
Sorry, is by what we're doing looks like it's beneficial to us, so is that the case?
yes,
Yes.
we have a fairly good mix, in terms of the profile of the investments. So we've got some long-term fixed investments which are receiving a good rate of interest. We've got investments that are short-term that we need so that we can meet the council's cash requirements, so that we can pay salaries and etc. And then we've also got investments that are linked to the interest rate. So as interest rates rise, they'll rise as well. So it's good, absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Councillor Davis?
Supposedly pooled funds are kind of more secure at the moment than certain other investments. Are we going to be focusing on those going forward?
At the moment, there's not any decision coming to come out of the pooled fund investments that we have. It's something that we'll have to talk about with Arlen Close, whether we invest any further in pooled funds.
Yeah, again, just to reiterate, I'll be meeting with Gemma in December to start to think about the strategy, the Treasury management strategy for the next financial year. We always consider the balance in terms of where we hold our funds across short, long, and in pooled funds. So we'll be doing that exercise again shortly. But as things stand, because we are also directly investing in property within the New Forest, we've got to make sure the cash is available, liquid, rather than being tied up in, say, longer term funds, such as the pooled funds.
Thank you. No other questions? No? Happy to receive that report then? Right, thank you. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Moving on to item 5, which is the internal audit report. And welcome, Anthony.
Thank you, Chairman. Good morning, members. I'm also accompanied today with by Liz Foster, who's been the day-to-day audit manager for New Forest since April last year. So I just walk you through our internal audit progress report, which reflects where we were as at sort of mid-October. I think it was about the 15th of October. So if I can ask you to turn to agenda page 27. This reflects in summary terms of where we are in terms of delivering the plan, and between the reviews that have got at least a draft report stage or the work in progress, it's up at around 83%. So it's really just the work that we'll be doing in Q4 that we haven't yet started. So we're exactly where we'd expect to be. Moving on to pages 28 to 30, this reflects where the council are in terms of implementing the actions that have arisen out of previous audit reviews. On page 29, going through to page 30, you'll note that there's 12 areas highlighted in bold with an asterisk, which denotes that all of the actions have been completed since the previous progress report. And there are a further 12 areas where there are no overdue actions. So with regards to the overdue actions that there's 13 in total, 6 low, 3 medium, 4 high. And there's a brief summary on page 28. It's for the high priority overdue actions. Moving on to page 32. Pleased to note there's no limited or no assurance opinion reports that have been issued this financial year. And the remainder of the report just reflects the sort of breakdown where we are on each individual review. The only final thing to note on page 35, there have been some variations to the plan. So there were 3 reviews that we hadn't completed last year, but it was still worthwhile doing those reviews. They've been brought into this year's plan and will contribute to this year's opinion. There's a couple of extra reviews that we've undertaken. We did some work in and around the data breach investigation that was brought to the committee in July. And we've also done some extra work in and around the leisure centre with sort of due diligence checks with the sort of staff chipping across to the new provider. There's a couple of areas that have come out of the plan, obviously to accommodate those reviews because they were sort of lower risk or not needed at this point in time. So I'll pause there, Chairman, and more than happy to take any questions if there are any.
I see the payment card is continuing out there for the, must be going for a record now, 6-7 years, isn't it, at least?
It's been around a while. It's, I'm sure Alan can give an update, but
I keep being told it's going to be next year.
It is a work in progress, Chairman. As I say, we are currently going down the route of trying to procure a separate payment system for the element that we know is non-PCI compliant, and we are, fingers crossed, that will be finished by the end of this financial year.
Sorry, Councillor. That was the one, yeah. We also covered the same. I think it's fairly straightforward, actually, isn't it? And there isn't anything dramatic, and it's quite good to see.
We're in a really good position. We're in a better position than we were last year, which is good, but not that we were in a particularly bad position last year, so we've managed to sort of carry on doing everything virtually. We're exactly where we'd expect to be. And I think it's good progress with the amount of actions that have come out, so that table will be a lot shorter next time as well, so that's good.
Do you have the same problems as external audit as far as staff and maintaining targets? It's quite difficult to find people who have audit experience, but we've got a program where we obviously bring people in and sort of train them up, but it does feel like we're sort of perpetually recruiting because as the partnership expands, and we've had a couple of people who have retired recently as well. It's just sort of keeping that thing, but overall, we're able to sort of fulfil all our obligations across all of our partners, but
it is a constant thing, just to sort of, as the partnership grows, and so we're up to about sort of 50 staff members now, inevitably you will get a little bit of turnover. And as I say, a couple of people have decided to retire recently. Shame on them. That's terrible.
Just give them HGV premium. Yes, Councillor Ward.
Thank you. On this page 29, the various audit reviews, there is a significant number. In fact, the largest number are quoted as reasonable. I'm not talking about the older adequate ones. I understand that, and only one or two is substantial. But when you look at this, unreasonable, it does indicate that there is scope for improvement, and which might put various things, the achievement objectives, about the audit. How reasonable is reasonable, and what does it mean in terms of this council? It's all right that this is a national thing, but I want to know what reasonable is in terms of this council, and what this council should be doing to get this reasonable to substantial.
Sort of a bit of a split answer on that. One of the purposes of internal audit is to obviously advise and assist management to identify areas of improvement. So obviously everything changes, nothing stands still. So you would expect, if we're looking at the areas of the greatest risk to the council, and we're looking at the most sort of significant and material areas, then if we're doing our job properly, we will identify areas for improvement. So reasonable is good in the sense that we're doing our job and we're identifying and working with the management team to identify opportunities to improvement. There are certain areas where you would expect far tighter control, so you would get substantial assurance than perhaps you would in other areas. So, for example, when we've looked at the payroll systems previously, Ryan's here, and a lot of the Revs and Bens type systems, there's a greater control over those areas, so you will get sort of substantial assurances, more so than you would do in other areas. If you were looking to try and get substantial assurance for every area we look at, that would probably be cost prohibitive for the council, because the layers of control that you would need might be a little bit onerous, reflective to the particular areas that we're looking at. But as I say, for areas like the sort of key financial systems, the Revs and Bens systems, payroll, you would expect sort of those areas to be more substantial. Also as well, on the table of outstanding actions, which is referring to, that lists all of the previous opinions, if there's no actions arising, then it won't appear in that table. So by its nature, with the substantial assurance opinion reports, they won't all necessarily be reflected within there. When you look back at our annual reports and the opinions for the year, and also as the progress gets made through the reports, all of the sort of substantials are listed, so you will get a balance.
I can follow that, but I just look, and I'm ignoring the items that have got double asterisks there that are relating to the old system. But of all the rest, there is only one substantial. There is one limited, and that's something to do with payroll. And yet that seems to suggest that with payroll, there is some questions there. And yet one item is substantial and everything else is reasonable. I'm only repeating what I said originally, or asking the same question. What is wrong? Wrong is the wrong word, but what's the difficulty of getting New Forest District Council a bit higher up the scale to get more within the? You've already told me about the cost and the involvement from yourself and accountancy, but what is the difficulty? I just find to see one that's totally adequate and the rest are question marks.
So again, this table reflects the actions that have arisen from previous audit reviews. So if there's a substantial assurance review with no actions arising, it won't appear in this table. If there's sort of small number of actions with short time frames, they may appear in the table once and then disappear off the next report. So if you look to the work for this year, which is on pages 32 through to 34, you'll note that so far this year for the reviews that relates to 21-22, for those reviews that have been finalised, there's 2 substantials and 1 reasonable. Now, one of those substantial assurance opinion reviews that was in and around the health and leisure mobilisation doesn't appear in the previous table because there were no actions coming out of that review, so there's no actions to track. With the additional restrictions grant, there was 1 action arising. It's not overdue yet, so it appears in that table. As and when that action's complete, it'll be highlighted and bolded, and it will disappear off. So by its very nature, the previous table that you're referring to doesn't include all of the substantial assurance opinion reviews that have been issued, because either those actions have already been cleared and previously sort of come off the list, or won't be included in that table previously. So the table above doesn't give the complete picture, it just gives the picture on where the management team are in terms of implementing all of the actions that have arisen out of the previous reviews. So I think if you wanted to get the more complete picture, you would need to look at the annual report and the opinion that summarises all of the activity for the year, and then that would show you the balance between how many were substantial, how many were reasonable, how many were limited, and how many were no assurance. So I think it's not a fair comparison to what you're alluding to.
Bottom line is, as auditors, you're quite satisfied to be recommending that we are good or above good for as our job as audit committee members.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think we should go back to very good, good, bad. Councillor Levitt.
Thank you, Chair. I've got an observation and a question. The observation, the first thing is just about the performance dashboard on page 27. I looked anally at last year's report, and last year's report said we had only 12% completed at that time, and yet to commence last year's had 37%. So good progress, perhaps understandable with the passing of COVID and all that sort of thing. So well done indeed. But my question is Annex 1, page 35. Can you just, the additional restriction grants, development management, housing rents are all recorded as being unable to undertake in 2021, 3 of them. Can you just amplify why that was? If it is all just down to the pandemic, I would understand, but are there other issues that you wish to bring to our attention?
Need to look back at those ones. Well, yeah, I think it was just a case of timing differences for when either officers were available, could have been around our availability. The housing rents one was in progress but hadn't been completed sufficiently in terms of featuring in the annual report and the opinion for last year. The work was sort of still in progress. I think that was the case with all of these ones, but they were still valid reviews to complete, so they'll contribute towards this year's annual report and the opinion. Inevitably, usually there may be 1 or 2 reviews that haven't been completed in time. I think last year was a little bit unusual for obvious reasons, but we're well on track this year, so I'd hope you wouldn't be in the same position next year that there would be 3 reviews that hadn't sufficiently completed in time.
Thank you very much for that assurance. That's much appreciated.
That's as now. Who knows what's around the corner? I'll put that caveat on it, but touch wood.
Lovely. I think you've got away now and say that. Yes. Yes, no more questions. Thank you very much. And we're obviously happy to note the report again. Thank you. Thank you very much. Right, we move on to item 6, which is insurance updates and renewals. James.
Thank you.
Morning.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, members. Just by way of summary, this report has had a recent outing at EMT where I explained the Council attains its insurance programme on a consortium-based approach with the majority of district and borough councils across Hampshire. 2020-21 was the first year of the new insurance contract, with 21-22 being the first insurance renewal under the new insurance arrangements. Currently, we are year 2 of a 3-year contract where we do have the option to extend. I was advised it would be beneficial to advise Audit Committee with an understanding of the final renewal terms for 21-22, as there was a discussion from insurers of a potential whole market price correction due to the state of the current market conditions. Within the report, I decided to take the opportunity to offer an insight on the type of claims we have received to date. Section 4 advises renewal terms offered in accordance with the long-term arrangements, which are listed in the table. With the exception of liability and cyber insurance, the increases to these classes of insurance are within the additional budget that was forecasted. Section 6.2 onwards shows the types of losses you would normally expect from a local authority. In each section, I've advised the risk measures that are currently being undertaken to mitigate these type of claims. The recommendation is that Audit Committee note the contents of the report, and I'm happy to take any questions. And I'd like to thank you for your time, Chairman and members.
Thank you. I thought we've done very well on motor. It's quite a dramatic saving on that.
Absolutely. We've implemented good risk management measures in place, i.e. first off, an electronic form of reporting instances that happened with our motor fleet. Before it was done on paper form, things can get put in the drawer and forgotten about. So there's a lot more accessibility because a lot of staff have access to laptops and computers. And also we've implemented a quarterly vehicle accident group, which sort of supplements the health and safety meetings that happen, the panel meetings that happen quarterly. And the purpose of that is to look at the claim trends, whether they're reversing or whether there are other categories of type of accidents, but also looking at the type of drivers that have had quite a few accidents within a 3-month period, for example, and additional training might be given to those individuals. So yeah, it's certainly working very well.
Do we give them internal points?
No, but funny enough, they do that within the police actually. But I don't know whether that would quite work in a local authority setting.
The other thing, the insurance brokers, is the costs included in the insurance in that total, or is that?
No, that would be separate.
That is separate to that. And are we better off with the new insurance brokers too?
Arthur J. Gallagher are a very big company. I haven't had experience with them before, so the early indications have been that they're very supportive in risk management, and they're serving HIF as a whole very, very good, but it's still early days. I mean, the contract only started in July, so I'm a little cautious to give a definitive answer just yet.
Good. Has anybody any questions? Yes, Councillor Levitt.
Thank you, Chair. Just two observations, questions rather, I should say. Just paragraph 4.1, the Hampshire Insurance Forum members, can I just be reassured that all the district councils in Hampshire are participating in that?
I will need to double check that detail, but I believe Havant might not be part of it.
Just one council.
I think it's just one, but I can confirm to you later.
Okay, well, thank you very much. That'd be kind, but thank you. That's encouraging. On paragraph 4.3, the cyber management, can I just be reassured? I think I'm right in saying this. It was 2021 the first year that we had cyber package as an insurance. That was right. So, and only a 21% increase is. Well, it could have been a lot more if we weren't members of the HIF, I assume.
Indeed.
Yeah, okay. All right. Thank you very much, Chair.
Okay. Councillor Harvey.
Thank you. I'm not sure whether we can do this, but would it be possible to know what the claims were during the year that we've made to see whether, you know, we're paying, the premium we're paying is justified?
I can certainly go and check. I don't know if that's something that would need to satisfy GDPR purposes, but I'd certainly need to clarify that. I'm not too sure if Alan's got a view on that.
Could be quite time consuming.
James does keep a running track record, obviously. So yeah, I'm sure we could pull together a fairly high level summary. Obviously what we don't want to do is come into the public arena with too much by way of specific
Don't want to
information.
break it down, but just.
But yeah, we could provide a high level summary for the committee, and we can perhaps circulate that with the minutes of this meeting.
Okay, thank you.
There's no other questions? No. Thank you very much, James.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you, members.
Just note that. Item 7, overview of workflow.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I shall keep this a very brief introduction. Just to paper, essentially, just to confirm the journey that essentially an order takes through its very initial inception, through getting through to eventual payment. So we give a little bit of background in terms of the coding structure that we use across the council, just to give members a bit of a flavour for almost some of the sort of complexities in terms of having different officers dealing with different levels of expenditure, and also the sort of the subcategories within the coding structure that we use. Largely, you know, the vast majority of orders go through the formal workflow process, but as outlined in section 5 of the report, there are a few exceptions to the standard workflow process. But again, these exceptions have their own controls built in any case. So I'm happy to take any particular questions, but I think it's hopefully the report was fairly self-explanatory.
Thank you. I'm not sure who would have the say on this, but I was looking at the executive heads who can spend up to £1 million. And yesterday we were hearing some councils have to borrow money when they get above 500,000. You know, so £1 million for one person to be able to say, yeah, we'll spend that. It seems rather high.
I think, well, let's use a real example. So, for example, we get into a 3-year framework with a contractor to provide new bathrooms in our housing stock. You know, the best person to approve an order of that nature is the executive head for housing. So, yes, it's £1 million order, potentially spanning 3 years, but actually they know the service, they know the contract, they work with their service managers, so they are best placed to be able to approve that order. And, you know, on the basis of spending £10 million a year, again, £1 million on a singular contract isn't that unusual and isn't perhaps that high. Likewise, with some of the other investment properties, for example, or some of the other, again, housing projects, refurbishments, regeneration projects, again, the values can be fairly high, but again, the best placed person to approve is the executive head for the area.
Okay. I'm not any disparages against any of our execs, but yeah, okay. Councillor Levitt?
Thank you, Chair. I've written here a truly excellent report prepared by Alan. Excellent, highly informative, detailed. But I do have 3 questions, 2 of which are pedantic, I'm afraid. So the first question, on the service manager, can I just clarify? Service managers do have more power than budget responsible officers. Is that fair assumption on my part?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Sorry, finger's not working today. Paragraph 4.5. Can I just again be educated as to how many officers work in the procurement team?
So we have 4 officers in the procurement team in total.
Four. Okay, thank you. And then paragraph 5.3, and this I have to read. My question is, when was the new financial system instigated? But was it only after the email from Bob Jackson to councillors and senior officers dated 5th of August 19 about a council officer being dismissed, a number of suppliers being suspended and the police being called in? Was that the instigator of this work?
I think what the new finance system gave us was the opportunity to make sure that we were using essentially best practice and what's regarded as industry best practice when we installed the new finance system. So that was naturally the time at which we would make some changes to our workflow processes. Obviously, the incident you refer to, that instigated some immediate changes as soon as we were made aware of a particular incident. But this report really is just a follow-up, just to confirm what's now embedded within the new finance system, which has now been live for just over 18 months.
As a follow-up, can I say that Bob Jackson in his email said at the end, I will update members when I'm able to do so, but this has never actually happened, to my understanding.
There is still an ongoing police investigation.
It's still ongoing. I'll just write that there. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
No others. Thank you very much, Alan. Move on to item 8 then, which is the review of anti-fraud, bribery and corruption strategy, whistleblowing policy and anti-money laundering. Nice load for you, Ryan.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, these 3 policies were approved in 2018 and they are to be reviewed every 3 years. We've undertaken a review. The policies remain fit for purpose. They're fundamentally the same. We've just made some very minor amendments. So the recommendation is to support these updated policies. Just as an update, I mentioned at an earlier committee about our online e-learning module that we're working on. I'm pleased to report to members that is now live. An email's gone out for staff to complete that online training for fraud awareness. So that is now live as an update.
Right, thank you. Does anybody have a particular questions on those? Yeah. Go on, Councillor.
I find it very interesting, extremely interesting. But can I just be reassured that these certainly the first one, the anti-fraud, bribery and corruption strategy, presumably that was drafted originally by CIPFA and we have just topped and tailed it and edited and what have you. So is that a fair assumption as a backbencher?
Yeah, we've worked with CIPFA and also internal audit as well as the National Audit and Fraud Network as well.
Right. And the other 2 reports came from other institutions? Yes. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay. Councillor?
Yeah, just quick. I mean, you did say that only minor changes. I mean, I've assumed, or would it be preferable, perhaps, to highlight in the document what those changes were, just by a line and saying revision A or something, so that you can see? Because I haven't gone through comparing.
The changes were very minor throughout the document. If you want some extra information, I can provide you what the changes were. So they were very minor.
No, I'm just suggesting that in future, if you make changes, you just highlight in the document what those changes were, that's all.
Perhaps we have annotated copies like you've got.
Chairman, can I just make an observation? Because I think it's important that the committee realises that obviously what we're asking here is the adoption of the whole policy. So in terms of the 3-yearly review, I think that the downside, if we were to only highlight the changes, is that would be the only bits we would look at. Whereas actually it's quite important that we take a holistic view at the whole policy during this process in this 3-yearly review. So I think that there's a downside in terms of highlighting where perhaps a word or two have changed. Whereas actually what we're asking members to do really is appreciate the policy in its entirety, as opposed to just the changes.
Well,
I mean, I think there was only about 2 lines in the whole of the 3 policies.
yeah, okay. I suppose I'm being lazy then, because I think, you know, to go through the whole document and comment again, well, presumably, you know, it's been gone through before and people have made comments and had answers. I'm just trying to avoid repetition and, you know, I don't know. I'll take the chair's advice on this.
Once a year. Okay, no other comments on those. So if we could take those on block. Agreed. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ryan. Nearly there. Work programme. We've all got a copy of that programme. I can't see anything else that needs to be added. Nothing's been added to that since. No, so I'm going to note that. And item 10. Yeah.
I understand it's probably my mistake, and I do apologise. Just on the meeting 17th of December, we've got the Redmond review. What have I forgotten about this? What is it to do with?
You'll find out a lot on the 17th of December, Councillor.
Yeah. If you Google Redmond review, you can read all about it. Okay, item 10 is dates, which was an addition. And so we got 22nd of July, 22, 30th of September, 22, 27th of January, 23, and 24th of March, 23. Seems way ahead, doesn't it? Where's those years going? Members agree with that? Right. Thank you. I have no urgent items. That completes the business for today's meeting. Thank you very much for your attendance.